No matter what document you are working on, the best way to begin is to think about the rhetorical situation. This is thinking about your audience, the purpose, especially in connection to the audience. What do they need from it? And the context that the audience brings to the situation, to the document. This allows you to make the most specific document for your specific audience and for that very specific purpose that they need it for. So let's break down what audience purpose and context is before you go on to rhetorically analyze some other documents. So let's begin with audience, which is really important in technical and scientific communication just because it's so typically user centered, where you are really guiding, telling your audience what to do. So, your first audience is that primary audience, that one that you are directly creating the document for, the person who has the most direct interaction with that document. But that primary audience isn't the only audience that you should take into consideration when you are writing, creating your documents. There is a peripheral audience, and this is the audience that has any sort of kind of secondary connection to the document. So it could be your boss, while not necessarily the person who is meant to use the document is going to have a stake in the information. So that is what you need to be thinking about when you think about your peripheral audience. The purpose of the document, you're kind of answering these two questions. Why are they reading or interacting with the document? And what are you hoping they get from the document? So if you are writing a quick help guide, what why are they reading the document? They are looking to get quick information. What are they hoping to get from the document? They're hoping to get the exact information they want. So you need to think about what are some ways that you can write this document to help them get that, making it specific to that purpose. Which leads us to thinking about an audience context, or what I like to call audience considerations. These are things to ask yourself about your audience so that you, again, are able to make that document with its purpose to be as specific as possible and as helpful as possible. A couple of different ways to think about your audience are to ask yourself what their values are. What do they hold important? What are their attitudes? I always like to talk about instruction manuals when we talk about attitudes. Most people hate instruction manuals. Most people think that they are not helpful, that they are actually more confusing. So, people who write instruction manuals should be considering these attitudes as they write them. And then needs. Again, what does your audience absolutely need from this document? What do they need in terms of information? Another thing to think about is what kind of mode of delivery does your audience need? Are they an older audience that prefers a printed document that they can hold in their hand, that they can file away? Are they more comfortable reading it online in a interactive PDF? Would they prefer a website that they can go through at their own pace and do in the one order that they want? Are they better with a brochure, a kind of shorter document that's heavier on images and bullet points? It all depends on what would be best for your specific audience. And that connects to the idea of accessibility. Is the primary audience going to be able to access it in all the ways they need? Are they going to be able to read it on a phone or on their tablet or on their computer? Are they going to be able to get to it when they are away from the office? Things that can influence this are other things that can influence this are disabilities. If somebody has poor vision, you might need to make the typeface very large. If you are creating a website, there are spots where you describe the image so that it can be read to a blind person. Organization, making sure that there are tabs and a table of contents so that the audience can get to the information that they need. Is it readable? And again, thinking about typeface, but thinking again, making sure that it's easier to get the audience through the document. Other possible considerations to think about are cultural. So, for example, if you are working on a document that needs to be used in a different country, you want to make sure that you learn about their cultural considerations so that they're able to use it. So, for example, the color red here in the United States typically means warning or danger. In China, it is a has a very different meaning. It's considered a celebratory color. So if you use red for your warnings, it's not going to have the same impact in China. Financial issues, how much money is it going to take to make these? Ethical, of course, is making sure that you include all the proper information that you need, thinking about the greater good of your audience. So, now that we have talked about these areas, the rhetorical situation, remember audience, purpose, and context, let's go through a document together, one that you are very familiar with, and that is a syllabus. More specifically, let's talk about your English 410 syllabus. So, the primary audience for this syllabus, when I was writing it, was, of course, English 410 students. You are the ones that are going to have the most interaction with the information. You are the ones that need the information more than anyone else. But let's get even more specific about who the audience is for your 410 syllabus. That is English 410 2016 winter session, section 194, 195 students. So you can be as specific as possible when you are thinking about the audience for your document. But you guys aren't the only audience I kept in mind when I was writing the syllabus. So a few of these are other 410 students. Some students might want to read through the syllabus and see what sort of things this class is going to cover, the kind of pace this class has, if it will maybe be an interesting class to include with their other educational goals. There's a lot of reasons why other 410 students would want it. Other 410 instructors, they would possibly want to know, get ideas for things that they could teach in their class. Maybe look at some differences, look at some different policies. Another one is the chair of the English department. As my kind of immediate boss, he wants to make sure that the class I'm teaching fits within the scope and goals of the department. And the same goes for the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. He wants to make sure that this class fits into the scope of the college. And that would be the same for the dean of whatever college you're coming from. They want to know that this class fits the needs of their students. And again, other departments, engineering, business, sciences, whatever you come from, they want to make sure that this class is up to snuff for them to send their students to. Other technical writing classes and other technical writing professors at other universities, They might just want to see what other classes are being offered, what we're teaching in different classes. They may be thinking of adding a technical writing class and they want to see what other universities and classes are offering. And I like to think about parents as one of my peripheral audiences, just because they have a stake in what you're doing, right? So, the purpose for you, for my specific audience, for any audience really, of all my audiences in the syllabus, and I think that there are a lot of different purposes. Um, So I think that you all, everybody should know what the course objectives are, what you are going to learn by the end of this class. You want to know how things are graded. That way you can keep up and do the best that you can to get those full points. You may also need this to see the schedule. What exactly are we going to be doing when? What's the pacing? Maybe you can plan accordingly. What other things do I consider in writing this? This is me taking in context into the situation. So, thinking about your needs. What do you need to know to be successful in this class? Again, objectives, grades, etc. Attitudes. This is my assumption on your attitude, that this might not be your idea of a good time. Many people like to tell me that English was not their favorite subject, that they're not very good writers, so I feel like some of you might be resistant to this class. Values. You value education and you want to learn how to be an effective technical writer to help with your future career. Some more things I think about. Accessible. I have this online and as an attachment to print. Obviously, this is an online class, so it needs to be available to you, but some of you might prefer a print version. Conventions that you were used to in a syllabus, right? You've been dealing with a lot of syllabuses over your college career. So I need to make sure that I include things like contact info, grading scale, attendance policy, late work policy. I also want to make sure that I have the ADA statement and Writing Center info. This is keeping the ethical context in mind. This helps when you are, or these sorts of things help you to become successful students. So I'm making sure that I give you all the tools that you need. So, this is a brief overview of the rhetorical situation. You also did some reading about it in your technical communication handbook. So, now that we've gone over this, let's go and take a look at some other documents and try to break down the rhetorical situation of those.